Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So I don't know if you knew this about how I learned velocity banking, but the way that it was first advertised to me was learn velocity banking so that you can know how to pay off your mortgage in like 7 to 10 years or something like that. And what's crazy is that every time I've done these velocity banking simulations, we pay off not just our mortgage, but all of our debts within 5 to 8 years, right? So if we pay off all of our debts within, I mean, in about 10 years, that's fantastic. But I think it's crazy just how if we have multiple debts, not just a mortgage, three, and you could see in this example, we have three credit cards, right? We have three credit cards, one, two, three. We got student loan, we got auto loan, we got mortgage. So we have six debts that equal to $279,000. And usually, if we pay those off in about 9 to 10 years, that's actually a bad day, right? Because we usually pay them off in less than around eight. In my experience, 5 to 8 has kind of been the norm. But think about how your average American, how they're unable to pay off debt. And I don't know if you knew this, but the average mortgage takes about 50 something years to pay off. And the reason for that is just refinances or people, instead of living in their home for 30 years, they move every 5 to 7, right? One of those two tends to happen. Now, well, how are we going to pay off this debt quickly? At least under 10 years, right? And let's see in this example how long it takes us to pay it off. But at least under 10 years, we're going to pay off all of our debt. So this is $279,000 debt, and we're paid off using something called velocity banking. And what is velocity banking? All it is a debt payoff strategy using lines of credit as your main tool. In order to do it, you only need two things, and I've always written it out in every single video. So again, if you want to binge watch the videos, you're going to hear me say the same thing over and over again because you only need number one, the budget. That's thing number one that you need, the budget. Number two is your line of credit as your main operating account. So now, why do we need a budget? The budget tells us all the debts that we have, and if we pay off debt, we get more cash flow, right? So think of your cash flow as like a bucket, and every debt that you have is a little hole in that bucket, right? And every debt that we pay off is filling up, well, patching up that bucket, right? And so I know this may seem obvious to you, but once you see it in action, I remember when I first began to understand it, it blew my mind. And that's how I was able to pay off 25% of my mortgage in under, well, in a year, right? So I'm not going to go into that in detail today, but I'm just saying that this strategy for me, at least for me, was mind blowing. So now that we have our budget, now we know that we have to pay off these six debts. We're going to assume two things. First, we're going to assume that we're going to make the same amount of income, right? So we're not going to make more income, even though making more income is fantastic. So if this was, next year we get a raise and this turns to $6,000, that'll be pretty awesome. But for the strategy demonstration, we're not going to make more money. Number two, and this is really hard for most people, we're not going to have any savings, right? So some people like to have 3 to 6 months of savings as cushion. I just have absolutely no savings, right? And I think that's something Dave Ramsey recommends, which is to have 3 months of savings. And I love Dave, but this is the one thing that I don't think I'm going to follow him on at all. In fact, he probably will look down upon the strategy of using lines of credit because that's using debt, and Dave is anti-debt. But although I love Dave, okay, so now what we have to do is we've done our budget. We need to select a line of credit as our main operating account. So what is a line of credit? All it is a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and use it over and over again. So credit cards, there's personal lines of credit, there's business lines of credit, there's home equity lines of credit. If you have no idea what a home equity line of credit is, think of it as about a credit card, kind of like a credit card based on the value of your home minus the debts that are tied to it. So if you have something called home equity and you're able to qualify, it's like getting a huge credit card, right? And let's just assume that we have access to, I don't know, a $25,000 credit card. And let me actually remove this. So $25,000 credit card based on the value of your home, kind of like it. But here's the cool thing about a home equity line of credit: you can use it to pay anything, right? You can use it to pay credit cards, student loans, auto loans, mortgages. Like, for example, if I use a credit card, I can't use it to pay a student loan or auto loan or mortgage unless I'm using a third party service, right? But with the home equity line of credit, I can use it to pay anything. That's what makes it so awesome. Okay. Now, just to emphasize, what's the difference between average American and the Velocity Banker is that the average American pays for things out of their checking account, whereas the Velocity Banker uses their line of credit as their main operating account, right? So whenever there's leftover money, it goes into checking account for the average American, whereas for Velocity Banking, all your income goes into that line of credit, and you're not going to have anything left over in the savings, okay? And so now since we've selected our main operating account, which is our home equity line of credit, just assume for this scenario we got access to 25,000, right? This is what we're going to do. We're going to re-engineer our finances to increase our cash flow. Okay? So, how can we increase our cash flow? I know we have these 3 credit cards. Let's go ahead and transfer this debt. Again, we're not making more money. We're just simply do a debt transfer to increase our cash flow, and this is going to be 14. This is going to be 18,000. Okay, $18,000 of credit card debt. Most people would freak out when they see that, but I'm going to go ahead and put this 18,000 right here, and then guess what happens? Okay, guess what happens when we have all of our debts simply transferred or our credit cards? This becomes zero. This becomes zero, and this becomes zero. So look how our expenses just magically decrease without making more money. Okay? This is the mind blowing part. And now what we got to do is increase our cash flow, so C2 minus C3, and that's how much our line of credit is going to decrease plus the interest. Okay? So now what we're going to do, so here's the actual strategy. It's really easy. Paycheck entire 5,500 into that line of credit, and then you take out your expenses 3,600, and then your balance will go down by the cash flow. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that and see how long it takes. So now I'm just going to put in some Excel formulas, really simple. I got to calculate the next month, right? I2 plus 1. I got to calculate the next month's balance, so that's the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus our cash flow number right here, which is 1873.91. Okay, now what am I going to do now? I got to calculate the interest because every month we got to pay the interest. So let's go ahead and take the average daily balance, multiply by the interest rate, zero point 0.1 divided by 12, because that's going to make it monthly. Let me just do this. If you don't divide by 12, there's no way anyone's going to pay $1,700 to borrow 1,600 to hold a 1,600 balance per month. That'll be crazy and nuts. All right, but let's down divide by 12. Okay, now it's more reasonable. Now what we do is copy these formulas and then paste it until we see a big red number, right? So you can see right here, it takes us pretty much, you could say 10 months, right? I mean, look at this. It went from here to here, and then like it's like $8.78. But for sure, it took us 11 months to pay this off, right? So now what we do here is we write as a milestone what we paid off. So it took us 11 months to pay off all of this credit card debt, which is 18K. And we did this pretty much at the same time. Okay, isn't that exciting? 18K in about a little bit less than a year. Now what we got to do is we got to focus on paying off these other 3 debts, right? And we only have a $25,000 line of credit. And here's the thing, you have to consider the interest rate, right? So when you're dealing with an amortized loan that has a higher balance and a lower interest rate, kind of like the mortgage, you don't want to necessarily move that entire thing into a line of credit unless the interest rate is exactly the same or lower, right? If you're dealing with higher interest rates and in a line of credit, you don't want to move this whole thing into a line of credit because even though you pay it off faster, you pay more interest. So what you do is you simulate overpaying but maintain control over your cash flow. Okay, so basically what you do is just move pieces of a loan. So for example, let's say this 30,000, we move 5,500 into the line of credit, right? 5,500. We'll do that here. And let me highlight this so we know when the debt was paid off. 5500, right? Look how long it took us to pay off that 5,500. Just 2 months, right? And here's the cool thing. We have something called a velocity banking calculator where we can just essentially estimate, because here's the thing, the calculations with these amortized loans are a little bit trickier, especially when you got a low interest rate and you're going to use a higher interest rate line of credit to pay it off. But we have a calculator for that. Now, after 11 months, let's figure out what the balances of these loans are. Okay, so what you do is you just go to calculator.net and then look for a loan amortization section, loan amortization, and there's going to be an amortization calculator, and then we're going to use this to figure out when our payoff is. Okay, so now let's figure out the balances. So 30,000 at 4.5% for a student loan, and a student loan typically runs for 10 years, right? I had to log into Sally Mae's website to remember this, because I was like, how long is a student loan? Let me go to Sally Mae's website, and Sally Mae is now called Navient. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at 11 months. So be month 11, and you see that this is the balance right here. So 27,000. Okay, so 27,000 is the balance of that student loan. All right, so all right, all right, all right. Which actor says that? You know what I'm talking about? All right, all right, all right. All right, so now the auto loan after 11 months, how long is that? So 22,000 is the loan amount, and 5 years, and was it 5% interest rate? What did I put? I always have to go back and forth on this. Okay, yes, 5%, and then we're going to look for month 11 as to what the balance is. Okay, and then the mortgage, $200,000, 6% for 30 years, right? So we just fill in those numbers, 200,000, 30 years at 6%, okay? And then now we got to look at month 11 of what we got here, right? So 197, okay? Now, which one should we focus paying off? Should we focus paying off that student loan, auto loan, or the mortgage? Now, I'm just going to give you my experience when doing all these spreadsheets. The mortgage always comes last. I've never had an exception to this, okay? So I'm going to tell you what the debt payoff criteria is to select which loan to pay off first. So what you do is you look for the loan with the lowest balance, highest interest or highest payment, or whatever loan fits into all three categories as much as possible. Or if you want a more mathematical formula to figure this out, use the cash flow index, right? So all it is a statement balance divided by the monthly payment. And it gives you a number, and the number has some significance. And the lower the number, that's the one you want to pay off first, okay? And it ignores the interest rate. So it's a little bit unintuitive when you first use it, but I love using this number. So let's go ahead and calculate this. So 27776.05 divided by 310.92, 89.34. Okay, so and ignore the dollar sign, right? This one is 183366.42 divided by 415.17, and then this one is 197754.31 divided by 1200. Okay, 164.80. 164.80. So the significance of the cash flow index is, think of it as a ranking system. The lower the number, the more that's the loan you want to pay off first, because you get more cash flow for paying off that loan. So what do I mean by that? So for example, would you pay $197,000 just to get $1,200 back? Ooh, that's a lot to pay just to get $1,200 back, right? But if you take a look at this number, would you pay $1,800 to get $415 back if you compare these two, right? That's why it's saying paying this one off first. The lower the number, you want to pay it off first, right? And also there's a significance to a number, but basically if it's below 50, you want to pay that off in basically it's considered an inefficient loan, meaning the amount of cash flow it takes compared to the statement balance is quite high, which is why you want to pay it off quickly, right? That's essentially what it's saying. So basically, all this is saying is pay auto loan first, then student loan, and then the mortgage. That's why I always say the mortgage is usually paid last. Okay, so now let's go ahead and focus on this auto loan. And luckily, we have a velocity banking calculator for this. Now, we do have We can put the whole entire thing into the line of credit. And actually, we have a velocity banking calculator that tells us how long it's going to take to pay off and the interest that we paid. So think of it as a cheat sheet right here. And I actually got this from Renatus. Okay, I'm actually independently selling their products. They call us an independent contract marketer to get some commission. But this is where I actually first learned velocity banking from, believe it or not. Is that cool? And so, if you're interested in learning not only velocity banking, but other things like real estate investing, learning how to buy properties at discount, go ahead and click the Google form link below, and I'll introduce you to Renan so you can get this calculator if you join. So, okay, so now let's go here. Which so I say this is a cheat sheet in the sense that you can just put in numbers and it'll tell you approximately when the date payoff is. So let's just go ahead and put it in. So this was originally 22,000, and then the balance right now is 18,000. So let's go ahead and quickly fill those in. Interest rate is 5%, 5 years, and what is that payment? 415.17. Okay, and so so I'm going to do two comparisons. We're going to put the entire thing into the line of credit, or we're going to move the loan in pieces. Okay, so chunking, that's what they call it. So let's go ahead and do this and look at the income. So 5,500, and we can just do the same as the line of credit amount. The interest rate will be 10%, and then our living expenses is going to be everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. So it'll be this, this, and this. So let's go ahead and sum these up. Where's that sum button? So it's 3210.92. That's our expenses. So 3210.92. 3210.92. Whoa, take a look at that. It only takes us 0.6 years to pay it off, and we're gonna pay 1976 in interest, which is honestly not that much, right? Like this isn't really that much interest, but better pay 400 than 1900, right? But look at the time it took to pay this off. Oh my goodness, right? And we start at an $18,000 balance. Now, let's just compare two things. So this is an incremental payoff versus doing the entire thing, right? So now let's see what happens when we do the entire thing. 118,366.42, right? So let's take a look at this. 0.6 and 395. So it still takes the same amount, but the interest is slightly higher because, again, this was originally a 5% interest rate, but the line of credit interest rate is 10%. So when you move the whole thing, basically kind of think of it as a thermometer, right? Like, I don't know if this is a good analogy, but if you put the money in, let's say, higher temperature oven, I totally don't know if this makes sense or not. Then you're going to pay a little bit more interest than if you open the oven, close it, open the oven, close it, open the oven. I hope that makes sense, right? So let me just do this. So 5500. Okay, so now uh, zero point 0.6 years is how much it takes to pay this off. So yeah, awesome, awesome. Okay, so now we paid this auto loan off, mind blown. So this will be 11 months plus zero point 0.6 times 12, which is going to be 18.2 months. So 18, we'll say 18 months to pay off 22 plus 18, which is, I think, 40K, right? So 40K. Okay, awesome. Now we focus on the student loan, and we have to figure out at 18 months what the current balance is. Again, we have our amortization calculator for that. So we just put it in 30,000, 10 years, and then what's the interest rate? I think it's 4.5. Let me check. 4.5. Okay. 4.5. And then 18 months. Now we got to figure out what the balance of that loan is right here. So 26,000, not bad. Respectable number. We've been paying for about a little bit less than a year and a half, right? That's 18 months, a year and a half. Okay. So now let's make this the focus of our payoff. So now this is going to be, whoopsie, where did my mouse go? Okay. So this is going to be 30,000. This is the current balance. and the interest rate is 4.5% at 10 years, and then the payment amount is 310.92. So 310.92. Okay, so now we're going to calculate our living expenses. So it's everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. And as you can see right here, it's 2,900. Okay, 2,900. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay, ooh, that's a no bueno interest rate or accelerated interest. That's a no bueno. All right, so now it's going to take us zero point 0.9 years to pay off this student loan. So, okay, all right, cool. So we're going to go in here, and what's zero point 0.9 years? So 0.9 times 12 is 10 months. So it's going to take us 28 months to pay off, let's see, 70K. Okay. And then now what we got to do is now we just focus on the mortgage, and then at this point we got to figure out what the balance of that mortgage is at 28 months, right? So let's go ahead, go to the mortgage calculator, 200,030 at 6, okay? And then now we're going to go to that mortgage at 28 months, 28, and it'll be 194K. Okay, so 194K. All right, so now we just fill it in. You just plug in the numbers. Don't think about it. Just make sure it's accurate. So 20000. Okay, and then here, what's the current balance? And then it's going to be 6, 30, 1200, right? And then our expenses will have decreased because these two will go to zero. And the only thing that we have to consider is just our general expenses. So this is going to be 1700, okay? And then you can see it takes us 5 years, okay? So 5 years to pay this off. And look at the amount of interest that you pay. So if you had just gone with that 30-year schedule, again, I don't know anybody who actually pays more than they need to in the mortgage. But if you look at statistics right now, it takes how long? 50 something years to have a mortgage completely paid off if you include refinances or reselling. So, all right. So 31,000, 5 years. And so let's go ahead and do this. So this will be 28 months divided by 12 plus 5. That will be 7.33 years. Oh my goodness, 7.3 years. And we paid off 279K of debt. Mind blown. Is it 279? Did I screw up somewhere? Let me just do this math. So equals 6 plus 8 plus 4 plus 30 plus 22 plus 200. Actually 270. So I screwed up. All right, 270K of debt. And let me highlight this right here. And now we got to bring out the fireworks. So, like I said before, this took less than 8 years, right? So, think about if you learn velocity banking at 18 and then at age 26, not only are you debt free from your student loan, auto loan, you're mortgage free, meaning you never have to pay a dime unless you move somewhere else and buy another home, but you never have to pay another dime to the mortgage company after 8 years, right? Everyone else is struggling to pay the rent. You're living good. You know what I'm saying? So 7.3 years, and let's make this green to make it a more happy color. And let's go ahead and draw. Where can we draw? All right, so let's go ahead and draw and celebrate. Make some balloons and yeah, balloons, and I'll put happy birthday or something like that, or happy debt payoff. Woohoo! And as you can see, I am a quite terrible drawer. All right, well, that's it for today. As you can see, below 8 years, we paid off all of our debts, not just our mortgage, 3 credit cards, a student loan, auto loan, and the mortgage. See how easy that was? And now we're debt free, and now we got to figure out what do we do with all this money. You have the same problem as millionaires who don't like to hold their money in the savings accounts because they want to make it grow rather than just have it in a savings account. All right, well, that's it, everybody. Have a great day. If you're interested in joining our group, go ahead and click the Google form link below. Before May 1st, right before May 1st, we are going to put a paywall of $75 if you want to join the group. So that's just as an introduction. So we'll see how that goes. But other than that, have a great day, everybody, and we will speak next time.